I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling. But out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Sarah. Hello.
Hi.
How's your day going?
Great. It's beautiful outside.
It is nice. Spring is finally with us, which is good. We
hmm
need the sunshine.
We do. We need
Hmm.
lots of heat too. So hopefully that will come sooner than later.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully. I don't feel like you really need to reintroduce yourself. You've been here a few times, but just a
Mhm.
little general blurb about you for listeners who maybe haven't, it's their first time tuning in.
So I'm Sarah. I'm a registered social worker and I'm a trauma therapist that works with a lot of folks who have complex PTSD, adverse childhood events, and I work to support them in their healing.
Yeah, and you're also our EMDR therapist at New
Yes.
Moon, which is awesome. And make sure to tune in to our episode about EMDR,
Mhm.
where you share some more information of what that is.
Mhm.
But today we are talking about healing and what that means, the expectations that people might have on healing. And think that sometimes I've heard from clients and from, friends in my life that they think healing means like being happy all the time or like not having any triggers or any like strong emotions come up, or feeling like they're over it, whatever the over it may
Mhm.
be. But in reality, healing can sometimes be a little quieter. It's not
Mhm.
always obvious or always comfortable. Sometimes it's a little uncomfortable. So I
Mhm.
thought we could talk a little bit about, what people think healing is, and then what it might actually look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, like I think a lot of people kind of imagine healing as being this big transformative
Yeah.
moment.
Mhm.
Um, like suddenly everything feels better, but that's not
Mhm.
always the case. What have you found from the people that you work with?
Yeah, I've also experienced that. A lot of people think that it's like this clear, like before and after moment.
Hmm.
One day I'm struggling, and the next day I have no problems at all. I can handle everything perfectly. But healing actually comes like really slowly, and it can be kind of unexpected. So, maybe in one situation you might be really dysregulated or angry, sad, not know how to communicate well. And then you notice that in the same situation, you're not triggered the same way, or, you're not as sad, or you can communicate better, or you're not, really angry. And that's healing, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
healing often comes like in little chunks, rather than this like one big aha moment. hmm
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like with social media and everything, I think we talk so much about healing and like feeling
hmm
better and regulating. And I think a lot of people like there's this misconception that regulation, like having your emotions be regulated means that you don't ever feel strong emotions, which
hmm
also isn't the case. Those are regulated emotions. If there's a direct impact to us, if somebody hurts us in some way, then it makes sense for us to be angry or for us to be really sad in
hmm
that moment. And it
hmm
doesn't necessarily need to be a moment where we're like, oh my God, let's regulate our emotions, or I'm not
hmm
healing anymore. Now I've
hmm
like gone back a couple steps because this impacted me so much. Those are
hmm
like normal emotional experiences that we have. But I think it does kind of um, add this expectation, this unrealistic expectation of maybe what healing does look like for folks.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because I mean,
Yeah.
remember with social media, you're watching or you're seeing people's best moments,
Hmm.
right? Like you're not seeing the in between that they go through to get to that moment.
Right.
hmm
Yeah. And I've heard from a lot of clients that and maybe this is something that you relate with as well. Like we've been working with them for such a long time. It may be like years. And they're like, well, I'm not done therapy. I haven't arrived to like my healing space.
hmm
and then think that something's wrong with them, where it ends up being kind of having some self-doubt, feeling like a failure. Like all of these things can kind of, I've seen them kind of show up with that expectation of just having it be something we arrive and now we're
Hmm.
done. It's
Hmm.
checked off the list, no more healing. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's not realistic.
No, no. And I hear from a lot of clients, um, like one client in particular, I've been working with him for I think a year, just over a year, and they have made so much progress in their healing journey, but they struggle because they think that they should be somewhere else, right? Like
Right.
they're not doing a good enough job or they're not doing something right. But no, like healing, especially from complex trauma, can take years.
Yeah.
And so, like celebrating like those smaller wins, like those smaller moments, like, for example, this client can get out of bed now. That's
Mm,
healing, right?
yeah,
And
that's
so,
huge.
yeah, yeah. And I think comparing yourself to who you were, not who you want to be or who you think you should be, is
Hmm.
is huge. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Actually, you touched into something which is like noticing those small signs. So
Hmm.
let's talk about those small signs because I think it's like you said, it's things people miss
Hmm.
quite often. And
Hmm.
and kind of like with what you shared, there's been moments in therapy where I'm like, well, look at where you were the first day I met you versus where you are at now. Now you're able
Hmm.
to talk about it in a different way,
Hmm.
or, you didn't lash out at that person. You were able to feel angry, but you didn't lash out at them like maybe you previously did. And so it is kind of, we are able to observe those very small
Hmm.
changes of growth, but it can sometimes
Hmm.
be a little bit more difficult for our clients too. But what would you say are some small signs that someone is actually healing?
Yeah. So I think like developing more of an awareness around what you're actually feeling in the moment. So sometimes, we're used to just reacting or being reactive.
Mhm,
So healing can look like pausing before we react to something. It can be
mhm,
checking in with our emotions, giving our giving space to our emotions, to be aware of what we're feeling and how we want to respond out of that emotion. Um, Recovering faster after being triggered by something. So if something
mhm.
happens and usually, you'd be a 10 out of 10, maybe you're a 9. That's healing, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think questioning old beliefs rather than just
Mhm.
believing that everything that you were doing is okay or not okay. Yeah, I think that can be like those are like small signs of healing as well.
Yeah, yeah, the pausing before reacting is a big one. I think it's
Hmm.
recognizing a less impulsive response.
Hmm.
And like even just counting to yourself like 2 seconds, or sorry, three
Hmm.
seconds, 10 seconds, before you respond to the person is good. But you also mentioned being aware of emotions. And I think
Hmm.
something that we talk to clients about usually in the first session with our consent forms is um, like this process can sometimes feel worse before it feels better.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of the time it's because we are unpacking the
that's
emotions,
right.
or we're highlighting them a little bit more. But
That's right.
what's kind of your sense of that worse before better?
Well, so a lot of the time, I almost feel bad saying this because I don't want to make people feel bad. But a
Yeah.
lot of the time, when we encounter a difficult situation or we're triggered or we have like an uncomfortable emotion, rather than actually feeling it or dealing with it, we just push it away, right? So we
Yeah.
avoid it. And when we go through a healing process, we're focused on not avoiding those uncomfortable feelings anymore. And that can make healing really difficult, right? And
Hmm.
that's why healing can feel worse before it feels better because we actually have to feel those things that we've been kind of pushing aside and avoiding.
Hmm.
And the other trick with that is it's one thing to acknowledge how we're feeling, but it's another thing to know how to manage how we're feeling. And
Hmm.
so then it's also uncomfortable having to figure out, okay, now what do I do with this? Um, and so, yeah, I think that healing can be is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say that, like, the discomfort, clients are like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I'm feeling all of this now. Now I don't
Hmm.
want to feel it anymore. And
Hmm.
it's not
Exactly.
that easy, right?
Yeah.
And it is kind of part of the process, and it's a great process, but
Hmm.
it is important to kind of acknowledge that in the beginning. But
Hmm.
I think also boundaries are a big thing that
Hmm.
I've like obviously talked to clients about and have also heard back from them that um, kind of setting boundaries for the first time feels super uncomfortable.
Yes.
But boundaries can also show up as a sign of healing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, what are your thoughts on boundaries as like those small signs?
Well, I think that boundaries, I mean, have a lot to do with self awareness, self respect, how we value ourselves, how we value our time, how we value things that are important to us. And so when we are in our healing era, it can
Hmm.
be important to enforce boundaries that feel really uncomfortable because oftentimes we're worried about what the other person will say, how they'll react, what they'll do, and how that will affect us. But when we don't have those boundaries, we're basically just telling people that they can treat us however we want and we're okay with it.
Hmm.
So boundaries are difficult because we're like setting a boundary about how we want to be treated.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there would be a bit of kickback from the other person or, in whatever situation. But, you know, that's part of the healing journey. And I think that people that respect you and want to stay in your life, they'll understand and respect your boundaries.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I think the part of healing too is honoring that we are allowed to set those
Yeah,
boundaries, that like
absolutely.
we have value and worth, and we are also checking in on like our capacity. And if something isn't working for us anymore, we don't feel
Mhm.
good about it. We kind of, what's the word? Yeah, like feel maybe a little bit more confident about needing to set a boundary, even though it's still uncomfortable to actually set one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you heard clients getting tired during the healing process before?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Well, why do
I
you
have
think that is?
one well, I mean, I have one client who like the has really complex trauma, lots of traumatic experiences as a child, and then re-victimization throughout their life,
Mm,
and they just want to be done. They just want to be done. They want to be through this process,
yeah.
because healing is really, really difficult. Really difficult. I mean, it can be very, very hard, very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes we come to therapy, we're like, oh, I'm going to be healed. This is going to be great. And then they encounter all of this really difficult work and uncomfortable work, and it's painful, and you have to, you know, um, like deal with all these things that have happened to you, that have been done to
Mm,
you, and that's really uncomfortable. And some people don't want to go through that, and I completely understand that, and they just want it to be
yeah.
over. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like that emotional fatigue, right? Like you're
yeah,
feeling all of this, and when you're used to not feeling or suppressing it,
yes,
it's a different kind of exhaustion.
yeah.
But like when our all of our emotions are just raw and felt all the time, it can be
Hmm.
a lot. I think there's also something like internal in our body that may happen as well. Like our
Hmm.
nervous system is like recalibrating, and so our hormones are kind of shifting and
Hmm.
changing, and that can also just make us feel like more physically
Yeah,
tired.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, the other thing that you mentioned about a small sign was like being curious about patterns or old patterns or
Hmm.
thoughts or beliefs. And so, yeah, kind of becoming aware of these cycles. Um,
Hmm.
that's a good one. Just having that awareness. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you pay attention to the patterns in your life, you'll be able to, well, your therapist can help you figure
Yeah,
out
we
like
can
what,
help you.
yeah, exactly. Like what's going on, why these patterns are repeating. And it's usually, like, from my experience, usually from some form of trauma, developmental trauma, attachment trauma earlier in life that has kind of caused this, a belief system or whatnot, where these patterns kind of repeat themselves.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Hmm.
that's a good thing to pay
Um,
attention
Yeah. And then I think being aware, this is something that, like, again, we may notice in session is when our clients are choosing differently.
to. Hmm.
And so they wanted to text their ex, but they didn't.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
they wanted to text their ex and instead they texted a friend. And so,
Hmm.
or saying no to an opportunity that came up because it was just not going to fit in their schedule, or leaving an uncomfortable situation earlier and previously they would have kind of just sat
Mhm.
in discomfort. Like when we start noticing that our clients are choosing something differently for them, like to me, that's a little like, ooh, I'm going to
Mhm.
bring this forward to be like, look,
Mhm.
there is
Mhm.
actual change that's
Yeah,
happening that may not be kind of like that the client just may not fully be aware of anymore. But it's
yes,
always so fun to kind of
it is.
sneak it back to them, be like, look what's
It
happening.
is. I know. I
Yeah.
often do that with clients. I'm like, remember, like
Mm.
this time when you used to do this and you don't do it anymore? And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I forgot about that. Or like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's so, I can't believe, yeah. Like they're just, yeah. And I think it's because healing is so slow and it's like really incremental at times. And
Hmm.
so, day by day by day, you're not noticing these changes that end up being really huge changes. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're huge for me because I'm like, look at what you're doing. It's
They're
so
huge for
amazing.
me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
celebrate the fact that you
Right.
didn't text your ex and
I
texted a
know.
friend instead. Like,
I
woohoo.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think because it's just their day to day, like they're just like
Hmm.
putting one foot in front of the other every day, they don't see how far they actually come.
Yeah.
And I actually love those moments so much because I'm like, hey, remember who you were like three
Yeah.
months ago or 6 months ago, and now look at you. Like, look at how much progress you've made. And then
Hmm.
they also feel like really proud of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of folks in therapy miss out on that pride, right? Like they, often walk in like shame or guilt more often than feeling proud about things that they've accomplished or things that they've
Hmm.
done. So this is another like moment to celebrate them as humans,
Hmm.
yeah, along their healing journey. Hmm.
Yeah, it's so fun to be a cheerleader. Like, I think
Yes,
we are cheerleaders for
yes,
our clients, so it's so
yeah,
fun to have that celebration.
yeah.
I think another thing is grief. Like,
Hmm.
unfortunately, grief is kind of like this part of life, and we
Hmm.
feel grief. I think we've had an episode before on different types of grief, but there
Hmm.
is grief of grieving who you were or how easy
Hmm.
things were or the people that were around you in a time where, you maybe weren't doing your best, or, you
Hmm.
were kind of healing from. And also like grieving maybe what you had tolerated at the time,
Yeah.
and just kind of feeling a lot of the feelings from there. But I think grief is also a part of healing that isn't
Hmm.
normally talked about.
Yeah, it is. In EMDR, one of the questions that we ask is there any like drawback to your healing?
Yeah.
Because some people feel really comfortable where they are, right? Feel
Mm-hmm.
really comfortable it, being, I don't want to use the word sick, but that's what's coming to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so grieving the loss of who they are in their like concerns or their mental health concerns or whatever label we want to use here
Mm-hmm.
can be a detriment to the healing process, right?
Yeah.
Because there's such an identity that they've developed being this way that, so who am I if I'm not this?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I as a healed person? Like, what does my life look like? What do I look like? What do my relationships look like?
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, there can be a lot of grief in like letting go of that. And also, like with the EMDR, a lot of people tell me like, oh, I didn't realize my childhood was actually that bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I didn't realize that I didn't get to experience these things or that I was treated this
Yeah.
way, and right, like you think it's normal. So there's also grieving like the things that you didn't get to experience or that you didn't have because of your trauma or things that have happened to you.
Mm-hmm. Or
Mhm.
like grieving what you thought your childhood looked
Yes.
like, and then realizing that
Yeah.
actually wasn't the case. Like there is a lot of that, and I think again, like that's not discussed often. I think again, when like we
Hmm.
talked about earlier, when people think about healing, it's like, yay, we've reached this
Hmm.
destination, it's celebration, it's all of this, but the journey to get to that place, and even when you're at that place of healing, there is still a lot of the sadness, the missing, like the grief that we
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
discussed. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that we normalize that that is completely normal part of
Mhm.
healing. But it is that like additional step that you might notice, like, you're on your way
Yes.
to
Yeah.
healing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And a couple more things just for folks to reflect on is um, kind of like changing your interests. So again,
Mm.
maybe the group of people that you hung out with, and this maybe like is on top of the grief that we just talked about, but like outgrowing people, outgrowing habits, outgrowing environments that maybe we were in. And so we're kind of left feeling kind of like we're in between like our old version of ourselves with these people that we've outgrown and kind of trying to create this new version of ourselves with kind of new interactions. So noticing that you're less interested in things that once felt normal is again like maybe an indicator that you're in the process of healing.
Mhm.
And then the big one is talking to ourselves differently.
Mhm.
Just kind of like that shift. If we're suddenly like not as harsh, or our internal dialogue isn't so critical,
Mhm.
we have more moments of self compassion. Like those are pretty big. That's a pretty big sign.
Mhm.
That's hard to kind of reshift our
Yes,
brain.
it is. It is. Yeah, I think that's great. Those are great examples.
Hmm. And
Mhm.
then the last one, which I love to remind clients all the time, is you're still showing up. You're still
Yeah,
showing up. You're still
exactly.
showing up, and you're still doing the work. And so
Mhm.
that's a really big sign that you're still there. You're still trying. You're still kind of showing up for folks.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, why do you think people have such a hard time recognizing their own healing? I know we talked about it a little bit, but
Mhm.
yeah, what are the comparison to others is huge, and then all or nothing thinking,
Mhm.
like healing should look this way. What are some other things you can think of?
I think it's also, like I said, about measuring themselves against where they want to be, like not where
Mhm.
they started. So, if we think about, I mean, really any client, they had this idea or maybe idealized version of themselves and what they look like when they're healed.
Mhm.
And instead of measuring themselves against where they started, they're like, oh, well, I should be this. I should be this
Yeah.
by now. I should be doing this. I should be healed this way by now. Like, is this normal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the comparison piece is huge.
Hmm. How
Yeah.
can someone like start breaking away from that? Because it is kind of like it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? But a lot of
Hmm.
people don't see how far back the starting line was, like you said. So,
Hmm.
like, what are some things folks can do to maybe start noticing those small shifts or kind of change that um, expectation or perspective that they have on healing?
Hmm. I think, like, going back to your comment about social media or just other people, like comparing, like, to stop comparing our internal experiences to the external, like how
Hmm.
somebody looks externally, right?
Yeah.
So comparing yourself to another person if they've been through something similar or if they're going through something similar, um, not really looking at their, like, we don't know what's going on inside people. Like, people can
Hmm.
present however they want, and they can present like as fully healed, fully functional when they're still struggling with a lot.
Yeah.
So I think, like, again, the comparison piece is big, and I think also like slowing down maybe like with, so rather than thinking about like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, it's about being mindful and taking a second to reflect back on, where I was, where I started, even like day to day, right? Like,
Yeah.
today I could do the dishes, today I could take the dog for a walk, and
Mhm.
yesterday I couldn't, right? Like, that is healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being more aware of those moments, but
With the
also,
small things. Yeah.
yeah, and with the comparison thing, like, yeah, exactly what you said. We don't know what someone is going through, but everyone has their own kind of journey, or path to it. So if somebody feels like, you feel like that person is fully healed, one, to your point, we actually don't know. That's just how
Hmm.
they're presenting. And two, their experience may be completely different than yours.
Hmm.
So you can't, it's like, comparing apples to oranges. You
Hmm.
just can't. Um, yeah. Yeah.
I also think that it's important to remember that healing is not like linear,
Hmm.
right? So like we go on this journey. I mean, it's like recovery, right? Recovery is not
Yeah.
linear. It's like some days are great, some days are not. And then maybe you're healed in this one specific area for time, and then something happens, and then you're like, oh, wait a second, there's still something bothering me about this. And then,
Hmm.
you move forward with some more healing or some more introspection, some more curiosity about where you're at.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like also giving yourself lots of grace
Hmm.
about the
Hmm.
journey is really important.
Oh, for sure. And one
Hmm.
thing that you mentioned before was also like pausing. I have
Hmm.
so many clients that are like, okay, I'm ready for my healing journey. I'm going to read all the self-help books. I'm going to like do all
Yeah.
of the homework that you said. And they're so eager. And that's wonderful. But sometimes I'm putting the brakes. I'm like, okay, yes, it's great that you're like all gun ho about this, but you also need to take a break from healing. Like you
Yeah.
also just need to take time to just be and
Hmm.
notice or, reflect on where you were before and like all of those things. But it's always like, people want to heal, they want to do that. And when they're really enthused about it, that's
Hmm.
wonderful. But it also is a lot and it can add more drain and
Yes.
frustration and comparison. And it can end up kind of backfiring.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I'm reflecting on my own healing journey, I've realized that it's taken me like 15 years to get to where I am, right? And it's like you said, it's not healing every day. You encounter a situation that you feel triggered by or that's upsetting for you. You work through that, you manage that, you're curious about why that's happening, and then you live your life, right? And then something else will come forward, and then you're curious about that and you do the same thing. But like it's a lifelong, it can be a lifelong process. It's not
Yeah.
something that necessarily happens in 6 months to a year. So, and I think it's just about, maintaining curiosity. Like I love asking why. Like,
Hmm.
why did this happen? Why did you feel that way? Why?
Hmm.
And I think if we can use that same curiosity for ourselves, it can really support us in the healing journey and walking towards healing in whatever capacity we're able to at that time,
Yeah.
right? Like I think capacity for healing changes and grows as we grow as people.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just important to, like, yeah, give yourself some grace when it comes to your healing journey, that it can take a long time, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of, and I can speak to this because this has been my experience with healing is sometimes I do get really frustrated with
Hmm.
myself of like, why am I still crying about this? Or why is this still so stressful? And it is through that curiosity, like you mentioned,
Hmm.
where you're able to understand, well, wait, this is actually a normal response to this situation that I'm
Hmm.
experiencing right now. And now maybe I need to just, have a good cry and then go back and tackle whatever I need to tackle. But it is, if you don't have that curiosity, if you don't have that
Hmm.
ability to kind of pause, you can just get stuck in the
Yes.
frustration, in the disappointment, in like the anger towards yourself for why you're not healed, this healed person.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really like the curiosity and gentle,
Hmm.
self-compassionate
Hmm.
curiosity. Like,
Hmm.
that's really what's going to have us start noticing some of the patterns that have changed. It's going to allow us to see, is this a realistic expectation that we have
Hmm.
for ourselves? And it is actually going to be more helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
to that end, like as you were saying, healing, we can still be activated by things from the past, right? Like
Yes.
we'll still feel activated, we'll still feel triggered, but it's how you deal with that now, right? Like so
Hmm.
healing means that you are aware of, oh, I'm being triggered or I feel activated. Why is that? Oh, because this is happening.
Yeah.
How do I want to respond? Right?
Yeah.
So healing also looks like having the space to understand a situation and then choose how you want to respond to it,
Yeah.
knowing that your response will either lead to more healing or kind of keep you where you are. And if you want to stay where you are for a while and explore that, whatever, cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Hmm.
And if not, then you just, you move forward. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good way to kind of put it for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think again, like best takeaway from this episode so far is just that healing happens in ways that you might
Yeah.
not kind of expect or think or give yourself credit for.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not linear. It's
No.
constantly shifting. There is no
Yeah,
destination. Um,
exactly.
yeah. Are there any final thoughts for listeners who are maybe in the middle of their healing journey?
Um, I think just to like keep moving, like
Mhm.
just I tell my clients a lot, like we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for
Yeah.
1%.
Yeah.
1%. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
So
I love
and
that.
often and often it's just about taking one, like putting one step in front of the other and keep walking, even if you're not, you know, experiencing anything in those moments that look like healing.
Yeah.
Trust the process that as you keep moving and keep showing up for yourself and keep getting that 1%, you will be like you are healing and you will be healed
Hmm.
as you continue that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to end this. Thank you so
Hmm.
much, Sarah, for being here and for sharing your
You're welcome.
perspective and wisdom. Um, we are going to have your bio and your booking all in our show notes if folks want to book. Like I said, Sarah does offer EMDR. You have a little bit of a wait list. I think it's like a month or so, but you can always reach out to us if you want to work with Sarah and kind of start on your own healing journey.
Hmm. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
thanks everyone for being here. We will see you next week. We have a couple episodes left before our season 2 finale. So make sure you follow us on Outside the Therapy Room Pod, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.